Hey everyone, welcome back to Talking Sense. I'm Ben. Today I thought we'd have a look at Xerjoff, which seems to fly under the radar a little bit. It doesn't get like a lot of chatter on the internet. It is Xerjoff Cavour One. So Xerjoff Cavour One, like I say, it sort of seems to fly under the radar a little bit. I think reason being, like the main reason for it is it's like an exclusive to their Turin flagship store. It's named after Cavour One, I think is the address of their store in Turin, and it's supposedly an exclusive that only to that shop, so you can only buy it in Turin. But that said, I've never been to Turin, so it's not that exclusive. I think that's the reason it seems to sort of fly under the radar a bit. But if you're interested in it, keep an eye out because it does show up on Xerjoff Universe occasionally, and outside of that, there are other channels you can go and get these. And also, I do believe if you just message them, I think they'll actually help you out and sort of help you get hold of it. I've heard that before. So yeah, it's not that exclusive. But yeah, the notes. So let's talk about it. Cavour One came out in 2017. The top notes are Quince and White Peach, and the middle notes are Moroccan Rose, Patchouli, Dark Chocolate, and Red Berries. And the base notes are Madagascar Vanilla, Caramel, Oud, Amber, Musk, and Cashmeran. I was a little bit, I got to be honest, the first time I ever sprayed this, it took me a little while to enjoy it fully. The first time I sprayed this, I really wasn't that impressed. But it took me a while to come around to it. Which is also, it took me another fragrance, which this reminds me of, did the same, but we'll come to that. So yeah, what does it smell like? Off the top, you get slightly bitter sort of fruit with the quince and the white peach. The quince, the white peach, and the red berries are the most noticeable off the top, and it's slightly bitter. That it does have this like just sort of gently sort of bitter fruitiness, and there's also a little touch of a kind of cough sweet kind of vibe going on here, like a kind of medicinal cough sweet basically, sort of vibe going on, and that sort of ties in with the bitterness as well, that bitter edge, and I can only think that it's from the oud with it is lending it a kind of medicinal vibe, a kind of woody medicinal vibe. But to be honest, the oud in this fragrance is so minimal. It's really, really minimal. So I think this might be the only time that you really kind of notice it. And in that case, I'm not actually sure if it is the oud, but it does lend that kind of medicinal, kind of cough sweet edge, that a kind of like slightly woody medicinal edge that could lend to it. So that's what makes me think it could be that. But otherwise, by now, it's not been on there long, and it's already sort of starting to sort of develop and move into its kind of middle. And to be honest, it's quite linear after this. The bitterness, that kind of bitter edge, has kind of left already. So that only lasts about the first sort of minute or two. And I don't really like it. When you first spray it, you get that kind of bitter fruit, and you just think like, I'm not sure that's very nice, you know. There's nice fruit beneath that, but with that kind of bitterness, it kind of turns you off. But within like a minute, and it's left, and you've still got that kind of slight medicinal edge to the quince and the white peach, but it's nice. And I would say now the fruits are kind of tucking down a little touch and moving into the frame. We're getting some of that patchouli and some of that dark chocolate. The rose, I don't really think the rose is very big in this, actually. There is rose for sure, and I can smell it, but it's not like the main performer. It's not kind of blasting out of the fragrance. It's tucked back with the patchouli and the dark chocolate at the moment. So the main players are these kind of the fruits, the quince and the white peach, and then underneath that you've got this kind of on quite an even balance, a kind of rose, patchouli, and dark chocolate, and then sort of below that, and very, very, very subtly at this point, you get a kind of amber and sort of vanilla and musk and caramel, that all of those kind of base notes, basically the Madagascar vanilla, caramel, oud, amber, musk, cashmeran, they're all kind of there, but real kind of subtle at the moment. The vanilla is not big, it's a little bit smoky actually. It's to be honest, it's real tucked down at the moment, but it's starting to kind of creep out. And when it does, because I didn't know this fragrance a little, when it comes out, it's a little smoky kind of vanilla, which I quite like, but it's really soft, and more so from that base, you're getting like this kind of slight gentle amber, and the amber melds really well with like the quince and the peach, to make it's very smooth between the fruits and the amber. They kind of flow quite well together. They blend into each other really well. And then you've got this kind of, it's almost like the fruits and the base notes are playing kind of one half of the fragrance, and the middle notes with the Moroccan rose, patchouli, dark chocolate, and the red berries, they're almost the second half of the fragrance. They almost, rather than be like a traditional kind of note pyramid where you have these top notes, middle notes, and base notes, it's almost like two halves of a fragrance, and the amber and the fruits are playing this half, and you've got the kind of that chocolate and the patchouli on the other half. It's quite interesting, but it's very nice. It's still a little bit cough sweet-ish at the moment, and like I say, when I first got this, I sprayed it, and still up until this point I was not very impressed by it, for a couple of reasons. Firstly, that kind of bitter and cough medicine kind of thing, I wasn't too sure about, and I was a bit sort of just not disappointed, but I just didn't really. It was a bit kind of spiky, I guess, and I thought this sounded like a much smoother, sweeter fragrance than that, and it's not that sweet. So with all those notes, you might think it's quite sweet, but it's not like uber sweet. It's actually quite. It's got that kind of fruitiness. I mean, it is quite sweet, but it's got that kind of fruitiness as opposed to kind of sugary sweet. It's definitely not kind of a sugary sweet fragrance, and I expected it to be a bit more. And also, I say that bitter edge is just not something that I'm too fond of. But about now, it starts to kind of like settle, and when it starts settling, it smells really nice. And it after it's settled, I would say basically you have this quite tumultuous start where it's quite rocky for about 10 minutes, and then once it settles after about then after that it's pretty linear, and it's nice all the way. One of the things that you get is the quince and the white peach stay throughout the fragrance, so the fruits stay the whole time. The vanilla and the caramel and the kind of amber start sort of eking out a little bit, and they start moving more to the kind of middle of the fragrance, and really the rose, the patchouli, and the dark chocolate kind of start kind of becoming more of the player, and then it becomes really nice. Like I say, it's still quite difficult to describe because it's not necessarily like woody or fruity or kind of rose based, or none of these notes really, I feel like, don't really stand out more than the others. It's very balanced. It's a very balanced fragrance. Like all of the notes kind of play together. There's no kind of standout. There's no front man, if you like. They're all very sort of creating a kind of symphony, I guess, as opposed to a kind of the star at the front. You know, there's nothing like that in this fragrance. It's all very much a level, which again, it's not something that I'm super fond of. Like, I quite like it when you have like one or two notes that are kind of starring in a fragrance. Otherwise, I feel like it's a bit one-dimensional. But it's not one-dimensional, certainly. But it does have that kind of balance. Everything is kind of on a level. But on that level, it's quite complex because there's quite a lot going on. So, you know, it's not a dull fragrance at all. It is quite dressy. I feel like, for me, like I remember I did a Richwood review once, and I said, like, this fragrance is way too like showy and over the top. This is dressy, but it doesn't reach that level. You know, it's still at a level that you can wear it and not feel like it's not over the top at all. It doesn't shout. In fact, that was one of the second thing that kind of disappointed me with this fragrance, and that's it doesn't have like a massive sillage or kind of scent bubble. It doesn't project like massively. It is quite a close fragrance, but I kind of came to appreciate that. At first, I was like, at this price, I would hope that it's a bit more kind of bolder than this. Like it's a little bit of a skin scent. I would say it's more than a skin scent, but it's not like huge. And I kind of expected it to perform a little more. But when you kind of get to grips with the fragrance and kind of learn about it a little more, you realise that actually, if it was more, it would probably be a bit gross, because the fruits in this are quite tart and unusual, and they're kind of toned down with the kind of the patchouli and the dark chocolate, and obviously the vanilla and the amber. And I think that if they shouted really loud, it would be cloying and disgusting. So I think it does work as a kind of closer scent, and now I don't mind it. I you might get really upset if you're really into beast scents, because I don't mind closer scents anyway, but this is quite close. I mean, I can still smell it from here quite clearly. So it's, you know, it's got a couple of feet of projection. It's not terrible. But it's not also one of those one spray the whole room's going to choke. You know, it gets quite close quite quick. And so that sort of disappointed me at first. But once you get the hang of it and kind of learn a bit more about this fragrance and its kind of character and its personality, I feel like it actually makes a bit more sense. I sort of mentioned at the start that this fragrance reminds me of something, and it really does. It reminds me a lot of Chanel Cavouramandel. Now, the notes are quite different, and there has a noticeable difference to Cavouramandel. If you had both, they wouldn't be redundant. In this, you've got the quince, the white peach, and the red berries, and that really sets it apart. And in Cavouramandel, you've got that kind of milky creaminess. I think, do they class it as white chocolate? I think as a listed note in Cavouramandel. But that kind of milky, creamy sort of white chocolate vibe. I would say if you take the 2 scents and on this side you've got Cavour One, this side you've got Cavouramandel. On the top of those scents, they've got that kind of milky white chocolate, and as for Cavour One, the berries and the quince and the white peach. Now, if you remove those, everything else below those notes are quite similar. Like, I feel like if you kind of duck under those kind of top notes that are sticking out with in this with the fruits, and sort of focus on everything below that, it's very close to Cavouramandel. And I feel like it even has a similar feeling and sort of vibe, and like I say, like the personality, like it's slightly dressy, but not over the top. You'll find it the same with Cavouramandel, where it's quite close. It's not over the top, it's not showy, but it is quite sort of classy, refined, dressy. It has all of that, it retains all of that. For me, and this is probably going to be a bit touchy, I prefer this to Cavouramandel. I do feel like they're different, so don't kind of take offence to that if you're really into Coromandel. I like Coromandel myself, but I feel like this is Coromandel for someone who finds Coromandel maybe a little, I don't want to say boring, because it's not at all a boring scent, but you know, this has got those fruits on the top which kind of give it a little bit more kind of whack and a little bit more kind of bling, I guess, a little bit more showiness, but not sort of over the top. But I would say that that's what it kind of reminds me of. It does remind me quite a lot of Coromandel, but with a kind of quince and white peach on the top. Now I would say we've reached the point where it's probably not going to progress much past here. So I'll tell you what it smells like. You've got the quince and the white peach still. They're quite prominent. You've got a very subtle medicinal kind of vibe, but that does go away within the kind of like an hour or so. Otherwise, below that, you've got a rose but the rose is very, very well blended into the chocolate and the red berries. It's quite a clean rose, and it's quite, I think if you extracted it, it would be quite a dapper rose, but having that patchouli in the dark chocolate and the red berries, and it blends very well into those, it doesn't feel dapper. It's muted by those and made a little kind of richer and chocolatey and not jammy at all, but the patchouli kind of drags it a little darker as well, gives it a kind of greener, darker edge, slightly kind of woody, so that it does kind of drag that rose, like, you know, kind of reel that rose in a little bit and stop it being too dapper. In the middle, that's what you've kind of got, really, this kind of very evenly balanced rose, patchouli, dark chocolate and red berries. I would say they're really evenly balanced straight through the middle of the fragrance. Hard to pick one from the other, actually. It does blend really well. And then below that, you've got just a very, very soft, I would say that of all the base notes that come through, the amber is slightly the strongest. And the amber, to me, feels almost a little kind of sort of tannic, maybe, almost a little bit, but it so it blends with the fruits, and you almost get a bit like a kind of, if you imagine like a sparkling water, that's kind of with a touch of fruit. You know, sometimes you get those sparkling waters with a hint of peach, for example. That's the kind of smell that's the kind of smell you'll get with that kind of slightly kind of sparkled tannic kind of feel. That feels to me like the amber in this. And then you have alongside that the caramel, the cashmeran and the vanilla. For me, they feel like kind of almost one. Gently kind of sweet, creamy undertone to it. They're very subtle, quite woody, and the vanilla it's quite woody and quite smoky. But don't get me wrong, it's not like smoke, but it has that kind of gentle smoked quality to the vanilla, I say. The cashmeran actually is quite subtle in this. I expected more of a kind of blanket vibe. Cashmeran kind of tends to kind of blanket things in this kind of velvety kind of swaddle. It doesn't really do that. It's just sort of soft in the base. But otherwise, that's kind of it, really. You get this kind of, say, at this point now, it's probably not going to progress much further. That's about it. It's pretty linear from now to the end. And you've got quince, white peach, Moroccan rose, patchouli, dark chocolate, red berries. They're all kind of very much a block, you know, like very on a level, very well blended, mixed together. Quite difficult to pick one from the other. And then below that, you've again got like a secondary block, which is the kind of vanilla, caramel, amber, musk, and cashmeran. The oud, I would say, is if it's here, it's on such a small level. They kind of create this sort of secondary block that's kind of down a step from those middle notes. and it's nice. It's inoffensive, clean, sort of gently sweet, very classy, very refined, quite dressy, but not over the top dressy, and I think it's really nice. So in terms of masculine, feminine, it's bang down the middle. There's not a single note in this which stands out to kind of drag it one way or the other. It's entirely like unisex. For when, I think it's really versatile. I think it's probably a 4-season scent, in all honesty. You could wear this in the summer absolutely no problem, because you've got that kind of quince and the white peach and the amber which kind of sparkle and bring it up, but at the same time you've got sort of the sweet kind of slightly sort of hint of smoke and wood vanilla with a kind of caramel to kind of bolster it a little bit if in the winter. So I genuinely think this is a 4-season scent. It's really versatile. I think bang unisex, 4 seasons. When you would want to wear it, I think you can dress it down if you want, but for me it feels a little dressy. It feels a little dressy, a little classy. It's got that kind of somewhat straight, refined edge to it, that makes me sort of feel like I would wear this if I was going to meet clients, or a job interview, or a restaurant, or something along those lines. You could perhaps also wear it as like a date fragrance. Funnily enough, a friend of mine came around yesterday, and I sort of tossed it to him and said, have a smell, what do you think? Because I knew I'd be making this video, and I sort of quite like other people's opinions. And I feel like I sort of got the grips of it, and for me it felt like I say, like one of those kind of slightly dressed up sort of classier affairs. And I wanted his take, and I said, tell me what you think of this. And he sort of said he's not a perfume guy at all. He's not really into perfume, so I like his opinion because it's usually quite kind of like bash. It's kind of like on the nose. And he said that's the sort of perfume that if you wore on a date, you know, people would love it. And I was quite surprised at that, because I thought it was a little bit kind of refined and straight for a kind of date scent, but that was his opinion on it, and I could see definitely where he's coming from. It's got a sweetness that gives it a subtle playfulness, that kind of, say, it's very refined and very straight, but it does have that sweetness that just gives it a subtle kind of playfulness. And the patchouli as well kind of gives it a subtle kind of, not darkness, I don't want to say darkness because it's not a dark fragrance, but it gives it something, you know, it gives it something that means it's not so clean, you know, it's not so, it does have a slight touch of kind of mystery, like dashed in at the bottom kind of thing. It's not too pristine. So it does have that, which, you know, I guess that's possibly why he said that. And despite, say, my friend, he's not really a perfume guy, despite that, I think he really nails quite often when I give him perfumes. I don't say anything about him, I just say, what do you think of that? And quite often he nails things like, he's got quite a good nose for someone who doesn't give a monkeys about perfume. So yeah, I kind of tend to sort of, if he thinks it would make a good date scent, I say it kind of made me kind of go back to it and think about it. And I can see definitely where he's coming from. So yeah, that's kind of Cavour One. It's really nice. It's a bit of a pain. Say it's a exclusive to the Turin Boutique, but you can get it. You'll find that it occasionally goes up for sale on Xerjoff Universe, and if you message them about it, sometimes I've messaged them about exclusives, and they've kind of hinted at the idea that they could possibly, you know, if I was really interested, and actually I wasn't interested in paying their prices, but if I was interested, they could potentially sort something out. So, you know, if you're interested, you possibly can get it. Say it's called Cavour One. Don't know if you can kind of see that. It's part of the Shooting Stars line, and it gets very little play, but it's a very nice from the Shooting Stars. I think it's really nice. I think in a way, if I wanted to sum it up, I would definitely say it's kind of Xerjoff's Cavouramandel. And I do think I do kind of stand by my kind of, but that by that it does kind of have those similarities. Say if you took away the Quince and the White Peach and you just smell everything underneath that, it smells a little close to Cavouramandel in kind of vibe and feeling and personality. So yeah, really nice. Can't really kind of slate it. If I was going to sort of pick a negative for it, I would say if you're really into kind of dirty, skanky animalics or kind of something really kind of creatively inspiring, it's probably not that, but it is very complex. It's certainly not simple, and it's really nice. It's a really pleasant, classy, gently sweet scent that, say, it has some unusual notes like the Quince and the White Peach. It's not something you smell every day, and it's really nice. Yeah, really good scent. So yeah, that's Xerjoff Cavour One. Cheers, thanks.